Finally, he took a deep breath and opened his door. We walked across the parking lot to our room, and the whole time I could feel the weight of the day pressing down on both of us. Inside the hotel room, he sat on the edge of the bed and put his face in his hands. I sat down next to him and put my hand on his back. He leaned into me and wrapped his arms around my waist, holding me tight like I might disappear if he let go. He pulled back just enough to look at me, and his eyes were red and tired. He said he was grateful I came with him this year because he'd been making this trip alone for so long and it hurt every single time. He told me he'd been scared to let me see this side of him because most people don't know how to handle grief this big. They get uncomfortable, or they try to fix it, or they tell him he needs to move on already. He was afraid I'd think he was broken or too damaged to love properly. I told him I understood now why he couldn't just casually mention this over dinner. This wasn't something you bring up like talking about the weather or what you did last weekend. I said loving someone means seeing all of them, including the parts that hurt and the parts that are still healing. His grief didn't scare me anymore because I finally understood what it was and where it came from. We talked for hours that night about how we both needed to work on healing ourselves while also being there for each other. He admitted he goes to counseling through the VA, but he hasn't been totally honest with his therapist about how much he still struggles. He said he shows up to appointments and talks about surface-level stuff, but never really digs into the guilt he carries about surviving when Maya didn't. I asked him why he holds back in therapy, and he said it feels easier to just manage the pain than to actually work through it. I told him that wasn't fair to himself, and it wasn't really healing if he was just keeping everything locked down. He nodded and said he knew I was right, and he'd try to be more open in his next session. Then I took a breath and admitted I needed to find my own therapist to deal with my trust issues. I told him it wasn't fair to him or to me that I was still operating from a place of fear and suspicion because of what my ex did years ago. He said he supported that completely and offered to help me find someone good. We made a promise to each other right there in that hotel room to be more honest about our triggers and our wounds. He said he'd share more about his hard days instead of withdrawing and shutting down.